Hello, everybody, and this is the missing link in your healing, coming to you with our last episode for 2025. We'll be back early January, around the 6th of January. So, this is the podcast where we bring to you insights, tools, perspectives, information from our own journey or Loretta's client that may provide a missing link in your journey to healing yourself from the inside out, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So, with that, I'm going to hand over to Loretta to introduce our topic for our last episode.
Thanks, Antoinette. It's so nice to be here with you again. I was on my own last week, and it's different when we're together. So we're going to talk about relationships, and I know relationships is a very big umbrella term, but we're gonna dip our toes in the waters. And the reason why we're going to do that is because there's few opportunities during the year that highlight our stuff as much as the sort of festive season where many people are either with their families that they maybe see often or not that often, or people who don't have families to spend the time with, they actually experience loneliness around this time of year. And I was just, Antoinette and I were chatting before we started. I remember when I started my practice, it was in August of 1995. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, great, August. So that means, if my practice, and I live in a small town, and I was like, if my practice grows by word of mouth, then by sort of the middle of December, I should have one or two, maybe three, if I'm really lucky, patients a day, which means I can like shut down from the halfway through December. Because in South Africa, sorry, for those of you who don't know, we have our long holidays over December into January, right? Because that's the middle of summer for us. And I was like, okay, great. And then I can have the rest of December off, and then I'll like hit the ground fresh in January. And indeed, my practice did sort of do exactly what I anticipated until about two-thirds of the way through November into the beginning of December. And that's when the pawpaw proverbially started striking the fan in a good way. I suddenly started having more and more patients. But the thing that was most disconcerting to me at the time was people were coming to see me with their depression, their anxiety, their burnout, their stress around this whole festive season, the holiday time, they're having to be with all their families. And I remember going home, I was 24 years old at the time, so please just bear that in mind. I remember going home to my mother and saying to her, oh my word, I don't know what I let myself in for, because these people have all got these big mental and emotional problems. And well, I don't really know that I'm equipped for this. I feel like I'm batting outside of my pay grade. And in the 27 years that I was in practice, every single year, there's something about the end of November into early December that just really seems to bring all of these issues that we experience with ourselves into technicolor focus. And of course, when we're triggered with those issues and the other people in our lives are triggered with those issues, and when we put us all together, generally it can lead to difficulty and stress. So hence this topic for today.
Yes, and relationships in general are really the grounding or the place where we have the biggest opportunity to see our unconscious stuff and our coping mechanisms and to work with it and heal it, but they're also the most challenging. And particularly for many of us, our close family relationships. And I'll never forget, I have no idea who said this, but it's stuck with me ever since I read it. If you want to know if you're enlightened, go home to your family. And for me, that's been true because that can be where the biggest triggers lie. And
Absolutely.
it also calls into question every other relationship, including that with ourselves and with the divine. And as you said, Loretta, some people are not going home to families. Some people feel very alone and isolated at this time. So we're going to talk to relationship in quite a not a superficial way, but as an overview today, so that you can take some insights and hopefully a few little tools with you into your Christmas, whether it's alone in relationship with yourself or if you're going into your family or some kind of situation. There are very many potential triggers. So, Yeah, Loretta, I think should I hand over to you now, or would you like me to
Sure.
kick off this relationship thing?
I just want to say one thing, sorry, about why. So first of all, why relationships are so amazing for our growth. I often quote John DeMartini, right? And one of the things he said in one of the very first workshops of his I ever went to was, relationships are not there to make you happy; they're there to help you grow. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
that's a bit of a like romantic buzzkill, right? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is one of the reasons why especially partner bond relationships and family relationships can be so difficult. So what ends up happening is you can have contentious relationships within your family, and our sort of attitude is very much like, well, they're my family. There's not much you can do about them. It's not like you can go trade in your mother and your father and your siblings and your cousins and whoever it is that pushes your buttons, right? But when you choose a partner, then you choose that partner. And so we have expectations of our partners that are different in fact, I think we have unconscious expectations that this relationship is going to provide all those things that those early relationships didn't provide. And you know what? It's possible, but expectation is part of the problem. So, one of the reasons why this festive season is so difficult is because there's so much pressure on us to be happy. Hallmark Christmas movies, for example, okay? The gifts, the season, it's all about expectation. We are expected to be having not only a good time, but we're expected to have these like heart-opening connections with the people that we're with. And the more expectation we have, the higher the expectation is, and the less reality meets the expectation. Oh, I'm gesturing with my hands again, and I forgot that no one can actually see this. The higher we set the bar for our expectations, and the less our reality meets our expectation, the more triggered we are, the more depressed we can become, the more anxious we can become because we have an expectation. So just remember, your limiting beliefs from last week's episode are triggered when you don't get what you want, when you have an expectation that isn't met. So we are so pressured societally to be having the best time ever, this gratitude. And in America, Thanksgiving happens here at the end of November, and then we have Christmas that happens at the end of December. So there's all this pressure for us to be grateful and to be happy and to be connected. And the more that expectation is consciously or unconsciously running us, well, the more likely we are to be disappointed and the more likely we are to be triggered. And for some other reason, humans, we have an amazing facility to just be blind to certain stuff. It's like if last year's festive season was a complete nightmare with your family, we tend to either go, oh, well, we hope it's going to be better this time, or we go in with, I am not going to let Uncle la 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 or my mother's da 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 get to me. So we either go in with like rose tinted spectacles, hoping it's all going to be okay, usually an epic fail, or we go in hyper defensive, hyper vigilant, and already reactive. We haven't even got there yet. And we've already rehearsed how we're not going to let our mothers push us around, whatever. Okay. So, I mean, is it any wonder that that very often, instead of looking like a Hallmark card or Christmas movie, it ends up being more like a horror? And then what we do is we sweep that under the carpet and then we let it fester for 11 months until it's time to do this again. So it would be great if we could just actually break those cycles. So the point I really try to make, sorry, all this waffling, is that the more expectation we have, the higher the pressure is for us to have a good time, the more likely it is that reality is not going to meet the expectation. And when that happens, we are automatically triggered.
Wow, that is very, very valuable advice. I wish I'd known many, many years ago. So, another coping mechanism some of us have, or I had in the past, is I just didn't go. So, I made sure I went overseas to a Buddhist country or I went somewhere because it was also my holiday break from my work, but I just
Mm,
didn't show up for Christmas because there were
mm,
so many aspects to it that weren't comfortable for me. I think the other thing we do at this time of the year in the holiday season and Christmas, whether we Christians celebrating it in that way or we're just gathering, is that we have bought into so many societal norms and conditionings that actually end up being some sort of codependency and people pleasing and like, and we've bought into the whole movie kind of scenario. So it's a lot of food and usually a lot of alcohol. If you live in our country, I haven't really celebrated Christmas outside of this country a lot. And we all buy presents we don't need or we can't afford. And like you say, we really try and do this jolly, happy thing. And it's so
Mm,
often the time when there's conflict or, yeah, it doesn't. So, not having expectations is a beautiful way to go in. But in hindsight, for me, I can do it now and I love doing it. It's also I can leave behind, but I didn't know I had them till I knew my unconscious conditioning that said
mm,
it has to be like this or this way or that way for it to be a family Christmas. So,
mm,
but let's pull it back to relationships and to the opportunity in this because it's easy to say this, but let me tell you right now, you're still going to go in even with this knowledge over and over again and get some kind of trigger
mm,
because it's just bound to happen. So, um, what can we do and what role do we play in this ourselves so that it's not annihilating for us and becomes destructive to our relationships? Because I know from my past with my family, because of my own inner wounding that I didn't know, I was sometimes triggered by things that actually weren't even that harsh, or I thought it was a punishing statement, or I thought I was being
mm.
misunderstood, or I didn't like the fact that they bought into this kind of Christmas and it didn't mean anything to me. And yeah, of course, it was expectations, but it was also my own unconscious stuff I didn't know I had. So the opportunity, I think most people listening to to this podcast have done some self-awareness and inner work and brought up some unconscious stuff. But the opportunity is now when you're in that situation to not only not have expectations, but try and become the witness, and if
Mm.
possible, be triggered. But we did a whole episode on triggers, and I'll put the episode number in the show notes. But learn from it. If you can take a slight pause, it's not always easy, especially with your family, but just try and figure out what's going on in you. What am I feeling? Why does this make me so uncomfortable? Why am I angry? Or, Loretta, I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole, so yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna step in with this is what I found valuable for myself as a tool. So write down what your expectations are, positive and negative. Just write them down. What are you expecting? My In our family, my brother always used to call us, he used to say, so are we playing happy families this year? Because that is a lot of times what it is. Like, are we playing happy families this year? So write down your expectations, positive and negative, right? And then then if you can, go to a memory of a last time you were together with people. This doesn't have to be the festive season, and like a memory that didn't go well, where like your expectation wasn't met, right? You didn't get what you wanted. So, I don't know, your mother lost her marbles in the kitchen or whatever. And then just ask yourself, if you can be in that memory, ask yourself, what were you thinking at the time? And how did it make you feel? And just what did you actually do? Did you storm out? Did you become aggressive? What did you do? Because those thoughts and feelings and the actions you take, well, those are your patterns. So when you do this consciously and you uncover that, then you basically and you choose to be aware of noticing when this potential trigger could come up. You are telling your reticular activating system, which is a part of your brain that notices what information is important to you and not, filters out the non-essential stuff, and lets you only see the stuff that matters. You basically are activating that part of your brain not to look for trouble. That's not what I'm saying. It's only for yourself. This isn't, so don't project it outwards, please. This is only for yourself because you can only work on yourself. You can't change anyone else in the dynamic, right? You can only actually alter yours. And if you do that, if you become aware of the things that were triggered, and if you've got the time, try and find 3 or 4 memories if you can, because you'll see there's a basic pattern. Either you lose your marbles, you get super confrontational, which gives you an excuse to bugger off. So you get in your car and you drive away. I have a family member who used to do that. Or you become the nice one who tries to smooth it over for everyone, and it makes you feel incredibly stressed, and you are clapped at the end of the holiday, and then you need 2 weeks to recover. That's another strategy. Or you become the one that takes everyone on because you're speaking your truth, and you create huge ructions for everyone else. You make it super uncomfortable for everyone else. I actually have one of all of those. I'm the make it nice for everyone. I have one family member who used to do the let it all out, and then everyone is devastated. And I used to do the other one who used to like have the confrontation and then get in the car and bugger off. So those are common strategies, right? So when you know that this is what you have a tendency to do, choose to be aware of that and make a commitment to yourself that you are going to allow yourself the space, if you can, to possibly not take that response. You can do nothing, but just don't take that response. Because when you do that, you literally are you're not going in with the rose tinted spectacles, because you're being quite clear about what your expectations are, and you're going to have memories of how this didn't go well for you before. The second thing is when you actually go to a real memory and you isolate what were you thinking, because it starts with your thoughts. Oh no, there she goes again. My sister's such a drama queen, whatever. All right. And then you get frustrated, and then that frustration makes you want to, I don't know, pick sides. So you side with your mother against your sibling, and that increases the chances of Mount Krakatoa erupting. So when you do this, you're not changing anything in the moment, but you're doing a lot to actually increase your awareness, and you're programming your reticular. When you choose to notice this, you're actually saying to your reticular activating system through your subconscious that this is what you're looking for. You're looking to, so that if this comes up, you have an opportunity, maybe not in the moment, but if not in the moment, then after the moment, to actually behave differently for yourself. And when you do that, you actually are unconsciously and energetically providing an opportunity for everyone else to do the same. They
Mm.
might not take that opportunity, so don't have that as an expectation, but you are at least creating that space. Antoinette, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, I think that's absolutely magnificent and very helpful from my own journey, but I don't know if everybody's the same as me, is that when I set an intention to catch it and not react to sometimes the very time that I do, because it's kind of when unconscious stuff is activated, sometimes it really has to come up in technicolor for us to really see it and take ownership of it, and that's not pretty, especially in families often. So if I react in a way that I've chosen not to, because I've been on this journey for 8 years now with my family, and it's got better and better. But there were times when I didn't react going in with what you've said, but then I maybe stayed too long, and then at some point I eventually did react, and I was the one that booked an early flight and got the hell out of there, or I got
Mm,
nasty.
mm,
So, two things I want to offer just from my own journey and advice I got from a professional psychiatrist actually is sometimes in difficult relationships, it doesn't mean we don't love our family. Maybe we only stay a certain amount of time if that's what we
mm,
know we can manage. Don't stay for 2 weeks. Don't stay for 5 days when you
mm,
know it's going to be hard for you until I think I've got to a point now mostly where I don't get triggered no matter how long it is. And if I do, I had a situation in August this year where I had to remove myself for 2 days and go away somewhere and come back.
mm,
I made a bit of a drama of it, but not much. But I knew if I stayed in the fire, the fat
mm,
would start popping and I would get worse and worse. And then I hate myself and it all spirals. So I
mm.
remove myself. But with Christmas and stuff, try not to stay longer than you know you can. And if you don't know and you misbehave, because we really only see ourselves and our unconscious wounding and stuff when it plays out. That's been my experience. So if you do something you don't feel good about afterwards, for me, try. The challenge is to not feel too ashamed or self berating,
Mm.
but to take ownership of it, and maybe you'll have to think about that a bit and then apologize if you need to, you know. And this does require open, honest communication, and sometimes that doesn't happen in families, but it is still our responsibility, I think, to see our role and to say sorry, even if the other person is not so great at it. I don't know what you think,
Mm.
Loretta.
I agree 100%. So, we can only actually be true to who we are. And so what very often happens though is that when we go back, let's say something's happened, you've had an altercation, if everyone's walked away and now you want to go back and you want to rediscuss this, it's difficult to no. So what I find useful is instead of starting with what they did or said, start with
Mm,
how you feel. Because
absolutely.
how you feel is true, 100%, and how you feel automatically connects you to your heart. Now, how you feel is not, I feel that you betrayed me. That is not how you feel. When this happened, I felt sad. I'm feeling sad and heartbroken that we had a fight. For example, that's how I feel, okay? I start off with what's also true. I love you and don't want to fight with you. Because immediately when you do that, you decrease the other person's defensiveness. So when you come in and you go, I want to talk about that fight we had yesterday. Honestly, if you come in at me like that, I've already started lining up 100 arguments about why I was right and you were wrong. Okay. But when you come in and you go, you know what, I was devastated after that fight we had. I hate it when we fight. You know that I love you. And I'm trying really hard to like take ownership of my part in this. And so this is what I want to apologize for.
Hmm.
Okay,
So
because what
that's
you do
beautiful.
then, right, when you can, and this does take awareness, right? But when you can step into, if you can't go back and talk from your heart, it's better, I think, not to go back and talk because all you're going to do 9 times out of 10 is have another fight. But just like, how do I feel? Because none of this makes the other person defensive. Now, this does not mean that if the other person did something that was really hurtful to you and that you feel that you need to mention that you keep quiet. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying don't lead with that.
Mm.
Don't lead with, you're so when you go full on bitch with me, then all it makes me want to do is rage. Can you immediately are going to make that person defensive, all right?
And
So
sometimes we have to take a pause before we even give
100%.
people feedback. And I can tell you right now, in the most challenging relationships, and for me, my family has been one of them, but we've all gone through it actually beautifully, is that's when your anger is going to come up. If you've been suppressing your anger your whole life, as a lot of us do in families, it's going to come raging up and it's not going to
Yeah,
be pretty.
yeah.
So it also depends what we do with that afterwards. And I once was very angry with my father, and we all thought he was quite a fast asleep spiritual dude and not very psychologically conscious. But I wasn't very kind at all. It was a very long time ago. He's passed away a long time, but he was so kind about it, actually. He said, I didn't realize I was like that, and I apologize. Whereas with other people, if you get angry, they get very reactive, and then it can
Mm,
get very ugly.
mm,
And sometimes I think you just have to step away if you can,
100%.
or have the fight, and afterwards you need to deal with
Mm,
it. But the big challenge for someone like me is not to self hate and not to beat up myself for 200 days and feel ashamed. I mean, you need to take responsibility, but
mm,
and that means creating a safe space within yourself, which has
100%.
taken me a very long time.
And the most common limiting belief is I'm unworthy. And one of the strategies of I'm unworthy is that self-beratement afterwards. All right. Is the guilt and the shame and the like how bad we are, right? Because I mean that's us reinforcing the truth of what we believe about ourselves. And so it is important that if you can So if you remember nothing else, remember I'm unworthy is the most common limiting belief of all of them. And I'm unworthy is seeking love and acceptance.
Mhm.
We all want to be loved for who we are. So if you can actually just start off by reminding yourself that you want to be loved for who you are, and every other member of your family actually wants the same thing. It doesn't matter how much of a palooka you think they are. The truth is, that's what all humans want. We all want to be loved and accepted for who we are. And we struggle to do that to ourselves. And then we look for that in other people. And we have an expectation that our family has to love everything about us. And you know what? Our family can love us for who we are, but it doesn't mean they have to like everything about us, just like we
Mhm.
don't like everything about everyone else. Another important thing to remember is that we filter everything through our personal filter of reality. And that means that whenever something happens, you're going to make an assumption about what is true based on your filter, your limiting beliefs, and about the past. Because this person may have done X, Y, and Z in the past. And so and it's not conscious, but unconsciously, all of that sits in your filter. And so, very often, what happens is, and I see this in relationships because I actually work with quite a few, I've been working with quite a lot of couples lately. I don't know, it's just sort of my business has morphed into the relationship area, not out of disease, but because a lot of people are sick because their relationships with themselves and other people is not good, right? So, you can't take relationships out of the health equation, it's impossible. So, what I say to those clients is, can we just use this as a premise? This might not be the truth, but can we go on the premise that whatever assumption you're making is probably incorrect? Not you are incorrect, the assumption that you're making. And until you can verify whether that assumption is correct or not, and the only way you can verify is by asking the other person.
But the thing is, Loretta, it can be so unconscious at times. And if I can share my own journey, and if my family is listening to this, it's a very interesting one. Because of my past wounding and trauma and all that, and none of it matters except it created an unconscious thing in me that I really didn't recognize till about a year ago is that I expect to be punished. I
Mm,
expect to not be understood, especially by my family.
mm,
And I didn't realize all of that was my stuff. So I'm already looking for some
mm,
misunderstanding because I'm the freak in the family, or some potential judgment because I'm different.
mm.
And actually, it was Aaron Upker. I'm going to put that episode in the show notes. I shared that Aaron Upker is a new young guy on the block, or maybe he's not new, but he put out an amazing episode and he's written a book on the ego and how to work with it. And the one thing he said that I've never heard anywhere else is you cannot receive, or anything lacking in your life is something you're not giving. So, and sometimes it's to ourselves. So I never realized how unconsciously self punishing I was, and also how unconsciously I expected to be punished. Such
100%.
a strong word, that. And once
Mm.
I saw that I'm expecting, especially from my family, and now my family and I are, we actually fine, but yeah, we have to see our own stuff and our own triggers, but it sometimes takes time because they're so unconscious. And that
Yeah.
reactiveness comes forth in families more than it does in any other relationship, is my experience.
That's 100%. So if that does happen, and so, I mean, you can't. So, listen, it's the 11th. What's the date today? The 8th of December. We can't compress 8 years of personal growth into 3 weeks
No.
when you're going to have to sit down and do Christmas dinner. Okay. So we're trying to give you a couple of, like, remember a few of these pointers, and this might
Oh,
make it a
yeah.
bit
Good
easier for you.
point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, if that does happen and there is an explosion and you can walk away from that, you can just ask yourself, what assumptions about the other person could I have been making? That's it. This is not about, it's not giving anyone a free pass, giving yourself a free pass. It's just, the truth is that for example, when I'm not good enough, let me use a different example. So one of my limiting beliefs is, primary one is, I need to control myself, others in the world. So when someone says, sorry, Antoinette, I'm going to use this one. When someone says, this is going to happen at this time. And then at the last minute, they change the goalposts. It makes me anxious. Okay. Antoinette's
That's
laughing
me,
because we've had this
guys,
in our
by the
relationship.
way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Antoinette's a last minute .commer. I'm like the kind of person who starts studying for the exam 3 months before, right? So, and it doesn't mean I'm the right one and she's the wrong one. It just means we have different styles. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why we actually probably have to work together because this is a relationship. We have a working relationship and a friendship. And this is the playground that all our unconscious stuff can also come out. Okay, so let's just say Antonetta said she's going to get the document to me by X. And then 5 minutes before X or an hour before X, she goes, it's not going to happen at X, it's going to happen at Y, right? Now I'm anxious because I've lost control of this. Now I know this, okay, about myself, but let's just imagine I don't know this about myself. Now I'm anxious, right? So I am going to automatically go, it's all her fault that I'm anxious because she's not reliable. She can't be counted on. One of my strategies is you rather just do it yourself. If you want it done properly, do it yourself. Don't rely on anyone else to do it. So can you see how this plays into my belief that it's better to just do it yourself? Don't work with other people because it just complicates things because no one actually delivers when they say they're going to. And then they pull the rug out from under you and you get anxious. Now, I don't that all that they pull the rug out from under you and you get anxious. That's the unconscious stuff that has now become conscious for me, right? But when that happens, I might go, Antoinette's unreliable. Antoinette's or whatever. Okay, so now first of all, I'm projecting it all onto her. But I'm making all sorts of assumptions. Or I might go, she doesn't have any consideration for me. Or she doesn't respect me. That's an assumption. Now, the truth is, if I say to her, Antoinette, did you change the goalpost because you don't respect me? She might say, no, man. So of course it's not. This is my own. I didn't because it's my own stuff. It's or whatever. This is how I operate best or whatever it is. But until I ask her, did you do it because you wanted to be
Wow.
disrespectful?
Mm.
I'm not going to know, but I'm going to make that assumption. So now, if part of my strategy is to pretend it's okay when it's not, I'm going to just put my frustration down. I'm going to suppress my frustration. And then the next time this happens, I'm just going to add to it. And what it's going to do, it's going to reinforce my assumption that Antoinette doesn't respect me. When the truth is, it's got to do with other stuff. It's got nothing to do with respect. That's what I mean about the assumptions. And what I see in relationships all the time with couples, these are people that have been either been together for like years or they've been married, they have children. These are the kind of people that I've been working with recently, is that they 9/10 of the problem is everyone's assumptions based on their history, their wounding, and their pattern.
Wow.
And the fact that no one's ever taught us to just go, this is what I think you think about me. Can you tell me if it's true or not?
But the interesting thing is, Loretta, I have developed emotionally and matured, even though it's been difficult for me emotionally, because there have been some relationships in which I have been faulty, so to say,
For sure.
and it was safe. So people said, well, thank you for apologizing or whatever, but we love you. And
Mm.
that's where I started realizing we don't have to be perfect to be loved, and we don't have to pretend. I spent my whole life in codependency and people pleasing to try and get some love. And we're not going to go too much into that, but people who loved me, even when I was really dodgy, in my words, were the people that showed me in some relationships it's okay and we can sort it out. But the thing is, there are some people that will come back and annihilate you. So that's where Loretta's going to talk to this now, but we're going to do more and more episodes, I think, on relationship and relationship safety within yourself and with God or a higher power, if you believe in one, because sometimes people are going to come back and make you seem the faulty one, even when you aren't, and then you feel even less safe.
100%. Yes, you are 100% correct. So what I should have said is if you want to know whether your assumption is true, you need to ask the person, but you need to be prepared for the answer. Because if I say, Antoinette, I'm making an assumption that you think that I'm overbearing and super controlling, is that true? And she says, yes, Loretta, that is how I experience you with this deadline thing, because it's not just one of us, it's both of us. Each one of us has 50% in the relationship responsibility. No one has 100% responsibility in a relationship. Each person in the relationship carries
Mhm.
50% of the responsibility. And that 50% is we are 100% responsible for our own reactions, because that's coming from us, not for the other person. So if I, let's just say that example of me and Antoinette, and I'm into her, and I say to her, this is unacceptable, blah, 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 okay. And then she comes back and she goes, holy moly, I'm devastated because you were so mean. Okay, now I start feeling guilty and I'm going, oh, the reason why this isn't working is because I'm not actually good enough. And then I say to her, listen, am I controlling and overbearing when in our work relationship? I have to be prepared if she says, yes, Loretta, you are, to realize that it's not that there's anything wrong with me. It's that overbearing and hyper controlling is one of my strategies to try and create safety for myself.
So
And
the
now I
thing
have
though,
that awareness.
Loretta, is you and I've managed to navigate some quite difficult stuff and we have a very, very healthy relationship. But some of us, because of our unconscious stuff in our past, get into very unhealthy relationships. And then we don't understand why when we communicate our truth, because we know we should, it gets
Mm,
turned back against us. And that's what sociopathic, narcissistic people do. So we can't go
yeah,
down that rabbit hole now, but just be aware that you'll become discerning enough over time to know. So if you're having a conversation like Loretta's saying now, if somebody is willing to have a conversation with you about your negative role in it or how it made them feel and how they would prefer you to be, then you know you're safe. But if
mm,
you express that you've been out of line to someone and they turn around and tell you how much more faulty you are and
yeah,
how it's
yeah,
all your fault, then
mm,
you need some professional help in my
mm,
eyes, because I never
100%.
knew what to do with that my whole life. So, and I kept on choosing those people over and over. If that comes back at you, get some help to find
100%.
out whether this relationship's worth even being in.
I want to just actually just pick up on what you said about speaking your truth, all right? Just remember, from the point of view of your ego, you want to be right. Your ego wants to validate the fact that you are entitled to be thinking and feeling what you are doing, right? And so we've got to be very careful with, I suppose we could do a whole episode on what is speaking your truth really, right? Because speaking your truth is not saying why you are pissed off with the other person
Wow, okay.
and what they've done. In my opinion, I don't think that that's speaking your truth. I think that that is defending your position. There's a difference between defending your position and speaking your truth. Now, I don't want to make it sound like standing up
There's
for yourself is a
a
bad thing. It's not.
balance, Loretta. So I
It's the
think we
balance.
need to do a whole
Absolutely.
episode. This is how it made
Right.
me feel. This is my
Yes.
truth. But
Yes, this is
yeah,
exactly. This is how I see it. This is how it made me feel. On further reflection, this is my responsibility. I apologize for having reacted and speaking to you in a way that may have, let's imagine I like lost my temper and I shouted and screamed and I apologize for having behaved in that way. I was triggered by X, Y, and Z.
but
All right.
also, Loretta, sometimes we shouldn't take nonsense from people, and it's okay to have a strong reaction. So we need to do an episode on this because it's a very
Mhm.
delicate balance that to because we've been conditioned by a lot of spirituality and self-help. We're going down a philosophical path now we
Rabbit hole.
can't do in this episode, but I've had to learn that it's not always about us and what we do with it. It is, but it's also about, it's both. So we have to take responsibility for our reaction, but sometimes we're allowed to be angry and upset when a
100%.
person has been very abusive or narcissistic. So
100%.
anyway,
100%.
this is
No,
exciting. We're going to
you
do a lot more
are right.
conversations around this because the one thing we haven't been taught societally in our upbringing
Mm,
or our schooling
mm,
is how to have non-violent, honest communication with boundaries. And Gabor Mate and PNI and everything you know from your clients is telling us if we're not able to do that, we are
mm.
going to be sick.
So true. It is so true. So what very often happens is that we go from compliant people pleasers, never saying anything, to the opposite, which is spewing it all. So
Yes,
please just
absolutely.
understand that those two things are both strategies. They're
Yes.
both defensive, and they're not, it's not good or bad. It's just that swinging from one to the other is not necessarily a sign of health. Okay.
No, and
So
when you haven't spoken your truth the whole life and you
yeah.
sucked it up and you repressed your anger, you are probably going to pendulum swing.
Yeah. So just know. So I don't know if we've actually, I don't know if we've helped anyone, but I want to say this. All we've done is we've possibly confused you more about the festive season. If you cancel all your festive season plans now because of us, please don't do that. Okay. I want to give you a little tip, which is something that I learned from a book called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. It's a book that came out when I was at university. So I don't know, 30 years ago, right? And, the one thing that I remember from this book and that I've used over and over and over in the dynamics between humans is there's a chapter in there, he calls them control dramas, right? So I can't remember how he contextualizes this, but this is basically the how it works. Is that a control drama is an attempt to get energy from other people. So we learn this when we're little about how can I get my mother or my father or my caregivers energy, not in a how can I destroy them way, in like how can I feel as if there's some of that directed at me, right? So this is not a bad thing, but we've all got them. And they're four coping strategies. They're four of these control dramas. I love the term control drama because they literally are control dramas, right? And if you know this and you see this, then it can really help you navigate relationships quite easily, I think. So there are four primary control dramas. The first one is the intimidator. The intimidator is the bully. You know that family member that is super confrontational, lets it all hang out, and then like everyone else gets smaller relative to them, or that family member that's difficult, that everyone tiptoes around on eggshells. They're often the intimidator. Then there's the interrogator. The interrogator asks lots of questions. They ask questions so that they can actually not be anxious. Because for them, the more they know, the safer they feel. And so, interrogators, I'm married to an interrogator. I don't have this particular control draw. It drives me wild. And my best friend is also an interrogator. How interesting, right? Because relationships are there to help us grow, remember? So, interrogators will ask you questions. So, what my husband does, God love him, is I will be telling him a story. And in my mind, I have a point. Okay. So, I'm moving to the point of the story. And then he will ask me some arbitrary question that's got nothing to do with the point. So I'll be telling him about my friend who had a da 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 da, and then he'll say, "What car was she driving?" I'm like, "What difference does it make what car she was driving?" Okay, so that's the interrogator. Interrogators always ask lots of questions. Then you have the aloof. The aloof is the one that withdraws. You know, the one that doesn't want to engage. And then you have the martyr who's like, you all so mean. Everyone is so ugly to me. Why is everyone always so mean, right? So those are the four control dramas. So intimidators breed martyrs. So you'll see that, okay? So an intimidator and a martyr, an intimidator loves a good martyr because an intimidator gets to bully and then the martyr will just
What?
get less and less and less and they'll get more
Oh my
energy.
God, that's so big.
An intimidator and an interrogator can also give rise to an aloof. I'm an aloof. I will just walk away so that you can't get any of my energy. It doesn't matter who breeds what. It's just about, make it a game. Think about your family or your spouse or your whoever, and then just ask yourself, which one do they have? So some people who are emotionally very triggered, so they can get they lose their temper really easy or they cry really easily. It doesn't have to be only a temper. They get super emotional. They can be intimidators because they use that to intimidate the other person into some sort of compliance. This is all unconscious. None of us are doing this on purpose. And listen, there isn't like a good control drama. Those are just the labels for them. So what you really want to know is how to interrupt the energy. So
Wow.
an intimidator, so anyone will always do the control drama while they're unconsciously getting your energy. And as soon as you shut your energy off, they stop the control drama.
Mm.
So an intimidator gets switched off by you standing up to them, not shouting and screaming, not trying to bully, but just saying, I refuse to be spoken to in that
That's
way. I'm
amazing.
happy to engage in a conversation once you stop trying to bully me into doing what you want me to do, or whatever it is. Okay. So when you have an intimidator, and you stand up to the intimidator, they back down. So I've got a little story to illustrate this. I had a patient once. I was very young. I was about 30. He was very rich, very powerful, very well-known person in our town, big shot, right? And he came in and he had a consult and he went off with his medication. He came back for the repeat and he sat down. And the first thing he said was, I don't see why I should have to pay for this consultation because I'm no better than what I was when I came here last time. And so, thank you for my Italian father and my Italian uncles, right? Because actually, I am a bit of a people pleaser. So I was very intimidated by this man. But the moment he said that, I just said to him, "You're not paying me to get better. You're paying me for my time. So if you don't want to have this consultation, you should leave now
Oh, well
before
done.
before you spend any time here." And you know what? He sat back and he went, no, 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 no. I'm happy to pay for this consultation. And we had the consultation. I never saw him again. But that's what you do with an intimidator. So I wasn't rude. I didn't say, who do you think you are? I just said, you don't pay me to get better. You're paying me for my expertise and my time.
And
So
the
if you don't want to
interrogator?
pay me,
Yeah,
then but my implication was if you don't want to pay me, then maybe you need to go, like maybe you shouldn't be having this
yeah.
consultation. So that's how you stop an intimidator. So an
Okay.
interrogator, you cut off the energy supply to the interrogator by speaking, by standing up to them and just saying, I don't want to have, I'm not engaging in this conversation while you're shouting, for example. You know, we can talk about it when we can speak in normal tones. That's how you stop an interrogator. An aloof, you stop the energy to an aloof by not constantly asking them if they're okay or trying to get their attention because an aloof is going to withdraw and then they want you to go after them and go, are you okay? So, you know, the aloof withdraws to the bedroom and then one by one, each family member comes and knocks on the
Oh, wow.
door and goes, Loretta, are you okay? Are you okay? And Loretta goes, just leave me alone. The
Oh.
more you pander and try and get a reaction from an aloof, the more energy they get. So the best thing to do with an aloof is to ignore them. Harsh, but that's how you do it. Poor me, the same. The more you empathize with the my life is so hard and why is all this happening, the more you feed it, the more you enable it. So, with someone who's going on about how unfair all this is to them, for example, you can
Is
cut off
that
that
the
energy.
martyr? Is that the
Yes,
martyr?
that's the martyr. That's the martyr. Yes, the more that you can cut off that energy feed by pointing out not the opposite, not telling them they're wrong, but going, yeah, but you know, one of the benefits of this happening is it gives you an opportunity to grow, and by not actually going, oh yes, you're right, your life is so hard.
Mhm.
That don't do that because the more you do that, the more you enable that behavior.
And I've
And
just realized from my own family, sorry, that there can be combinations. So if you're raised
yes,
by
yes,
an intimidator,
always,
all
yes,
children are martyrs, but then they can also have the other
always.
aspects. Am I
Yes.
right?
So most people have got two.
Fascinating.
They've got two main ones. Most people have got two main ones. And this is a function of your ego. It's another function of your egoic need to survive that you develop when you're a young child. So even if you forget how to turn them off, it doesn't matter. Just notice them. Because when you know that your control drama is being aloof, and you've now had a fight with your mother around the Christmas turkey and you storm off in a huff. If you can at that point go, oh my goodness, this is me in my aloof. And then your mother is like, oh, but I only try and do my best and I want everyone to have the best time. You go like, oh my goodness, there she is in her martyr. Because I must say that's how I navigate social situations mostly is I'd like to analyze. I like go, oh, what control drama is this? And the minute you see through it, you no longer take it quite so personally. And that's actually one of the keys to surviving all relationships because the reason why we get so triggered is because we take everything so personally. And very often, I mean, it is personal and we are involved and we are emotionally connected. And it is our family, if it's, you know, family, or it is our spouse, or it is our long-term partner, or it is our colleague. The fact of the matter is that if you can just create that little gap and see it for what it is, then you stop taking it so personally, and then you potentially decrease your risk of um, what's the word? Uh, of reacting. Okay, so I see I've lost Antoinette, so I'm just going to carry on. So when you identify the pattern and you see it for what it is, then you realize it's just the pattern. It's not necessarily personal. And yes, it's personal because it's being projected at you. But in the same way, when you do it, it's personal. It's not about that person. It's about your survival instinct or mechanism to get the energy or the attention of that person. So I have found that the control dramas are really, really good. They're easy to spot. They're easy to see in yourself. They're easy to see in other people. And just the short hack is an intimidator, you stand up to them. A martyr, you don't pander to them. You don't agree with them. You don't empathize with them. You shift that energy. An aloof, you don't pursue them. And an interrogator, you stop at question number one or question number two. So I was telling you about my husband. I say to my husband, that's got nothing to do with the story. So if you please, if you could ask me no questions and let me just finish what I'm saying, and then you can ask me as many questions as you want. Because then I'm not irritated because he's not actually interrupting me. So that's the way that you can use your control dramas to navigate your way through. So I think that wraps up our short, it was supposed to be short, I think it was longer than short, episode on dipping our toes into the dynamics of relationships. May you have an amazing festive season, no matter what it is that you're doing. May you get a chance to rest. May you get a chance to relax. May you get a chance to recharge. I know that that's what Antoinette and I are going to be doing. Thank you for being here with us. For those of you who have followed us since we've started, thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you who've just discovered us, thank you. If you found this episode useful, please will you share the link directly with your friends. And we will see you next year with more missing links in your healing.